Hello. So I'm doing a games perspective on with the use of ZBrush. But just to tell you more about myself, I've been using ZBrush for maybe more than about 2 years now, so not that long actually. It's a really just quick preview of some of the work I've done. And when you do stuff like this on your own time in your own portfolio, people at work recognize that you want to sculpt and you do stuff like this, and then you actually get to do it at work. So I get to do this now like daily at work, besides from having to do some more rigging, and yeah, well, mostly rigging. I don't do SFX anymore. So these are, and also with stuff like this, I've also made some good contacts in people who do. So I'm a little bit nervous. I've never done this many people again before. So I'm just gonna have a glass of water. This is oof. So yeah, I've made some few contacts, and and they're traditional sculptors, and they do rapid prototyping, and so hopefully I get some stuff to do like this, you know, more artistic stuff, you know. So the thing is with ZBrush, you start to think backwards. You become more artistic. So instead of having to think about wireframes and having to know, oh, I need a point there for a clavicle shape, you know, it's kind of and how that will next connect to the next point, and you're basically trying to do making a good wireframe for your animation or for games or something. And even for advertising, if they're not using ZBrush, they're quite particular where you put your points, and this is what the art leads would look at most of the time. But with ZBrush, you have this maximum freedom of just pushing and pulling everything out, and now you have with the new version, you can actually do hair as well. You can export the NURBS curves for it in Maya, for example, and then you can generate the hair. So these are some old sculpts. This is some advertising work I've done before I got into games. So I had to sculpt all these characters, and a friend of mine had to do all these the dust, and then on top of it, there's a bit of some Photoshop work, I believe. As you can see, there's a sculpt. And some game models done within like 3 days. It's not particularly made for any actual game. It's just personal work. I can't really show any actual work because of NDA. This is a big project I had to work on when I was still in advertising. There was loads of other ZBrush artists from around the world that had to help me out and do the other sculpts, and I was basically the only guy at the office that used ZBrush, so I had to basically clean up all the models, sculpt the faces again and again, and clients would say, oh, Rooney's mouth needs to be bigger or something like that. And it just, you know, and that happens every day. Make it bigger. And then we actually get some actual 3D printing of them, and they were in Nike Town in Oxford Street. So these were quite nice to see actually being done. Some cute stuff you can do in ZBrush as well, you know, really simple, 2 days of work. This was actually my first ZBrush test. See what I can do with it, and just pose a character, sculpt it, make a nice cage, a base mesh cage, which I can bring back into Maya and do an actual render. And then I had to play with some fur with Maya. This one, I did this ages ago. I sculpted a werewolf head, and just out of frustration while I was preparing my presentation and I had one of those disastrous crashes, I just decided I needed to cool down and put some hair on his body, and turned out well. And that's just in less than an hour in ZBrush. It's crazy. And that's another speed sculpt that me and Max are actually doing. So he's going to have to do his alien soon. So that's some of the work. I can show you some quick turntables. Just one of them, and that's it. Nah, never mind. You can see my work on my website. It's called, it's not there. It's called inspiredpoggy.com. And okay, so let's go into the actual project that I was working on for this actual presentation. This took more than just an hour of work, so I'm not going to be able to show you how I've done it all the way through. But I'll basically show you techniques in ZBrush, really easy to do, and nothing super crazy, really. So basically, I was thinking of I basically started something on my lunch break, started just sculpting a character like this. And that's what it turned out to be during my lunch break. And he looked a little bit sad, and he didn't have any arms. So I decided, he's got potential. I can do something with this guy. And then I gave him a much more meaner face. And then I've decided that I'm going to combine some of these shapes, which are really hard to do in Maya, like combining a cylinder, and then it combines into this thing that pokes out. And then it is also combined to this like wolf type helmet shape, and then you put some color in ZBrush, so you can use some nice materials in ZBrush, and it's all real time. It's very cheap on the it's not like you're rendering 1 hour or 30 minutes or 5 minutes. It's right in front of your screen. You can do a screen grab in, so you can make it look like a Maya blend or a Max blend or some sort of fake skin shader, so you can play around with that. And basically, I thought this guy looked really cool, and I wanted to do a nice render of him, but I realized I still haven't added any arms to him, so I decided I was going to do a full body character for him. And then I started shaping him up, adding all these little bits and pieces. And these are literally, there's no Maya modeling in this. It's just making a sphere in ZBrush and then just carving it out, and I'll show you guys how to do that in a bit. So I'll just show you the evolution of this character, and then I should be able to tackle all the small bits. Again, nice red matte cap material. It looks like a car shader almost, and then there's some more. And you can see in here in the foot, it's a lot, some really complicated stuff that you wouldn't be able to sort of like not do in Maya in a second, you know. These things are just really complicated Boolean operations that you can do in ZBrush, which handles really well. Obviously at this point, I'm not even thinking about wireframe at all. But in games, it is important to have a very low poly wireframe, because then you wouldn't be able to animate it or anything. So the technique afterwards is the technique is you do something really high res. You can do something as crazy as something as you see in Gears of War, or you see some games with really crazy detail. And then later on, it's actually all transferred down to a 20,000 triangle. That's just 10,000 faces, square polygons. And that's really small sometimes. But it's all baked into a normal map, which basically calculates the surface direction. So it plays a trick on your eye that the lighting does something to the surface, which I'll show you in a bit. So now I've added some more legs. I've sort of done something with his arm. I've actually added in a human character inside it, just to get the proportions and the pose on his stand to be more stronger. Over here, I was trying to do something with his leg, so I'm adding a piece there. So I'll just go really quickly. Now I've started to add some details. I actually decided that I'm not going to do I'm not going to make his arm like the rest of his body. I wanted to show some actual sculpting that I can do with like cloth sculpting, just with a standard brush. And then I decided I need to make this character more interesting. So that's the thing about games. At work, what I do is sometimes I'm not given a concept art. They just tell me, oh, you need to do a parasite, or it has to be a mix of this. So they give you a mood board, but they don't tell you that this is the specific one they want. They basically want you to do something like it, but not like that. So it becomes really, what am I going to do? Could you just, usually I'm a very visual person. You just show me what to do, and I'll do it. I mean, it's like doing a likeness sculpting. If you want to do Tom Cruise, for example, just need to look at a picture, and then I can do it. But in games, it's very, designers, they have their ideas in their heads, and they don't really know how to express it really well sometimes. Or they just want to see loads of things, mood boards, and they'll collect about like hundreds of pictures and references, and you end up not really knowing what they want. So in ZBrush, it's amazing that you can just basically pull out another arm or make a mustache or something, and just not having to spend a day just doing these small little bits. So basically, ZBrush is a lifesaver for me, really. So for here, I had this very small arm. Decided, oh, I need to make it bigger. And you can see underneath this, I actually have a basic sculpting shape underneath it. And then I started to do some extracting, which basically is, I'll show you that in a bit again. I'll try to go really quickly so I can start doing these things. So I did change the arm again. So it's all about an evolution. And now, as you can see, I start to do these much more smaller little detail. Again, in Maya, this would be really complicated. You could do this in Maya. You can do a high-res mesh in Maya. I know a lot of people who are much comfortable to do high-res models in Maya, especially when it comes to hard surface art, just because you know how the edges will work, basically. By adding another edge loop, it's going to make a crease, and it hardens the edge, and it doesn't turn into a sphere, right? So, but in ZBrush, just use a brush, and it will just make a flat, just use a flattened brush, and that does it, really. So again, here's some more details, and it's much more detailed. And then I decided the arm isn't really working. Every time I look at the arm, it just hides the body. All the interesting stuff that I've done is gone. So, and then I won't be able to show them, oh, I can do a nice torso. So I've decided just to lose the arm and just turn these into, so this is a nice render of him with the head and the fiber mesh, the hair in ZBrush, which I didn't get to use at the end. And then I changed the foot, the style of the foot. So I'm continuously just changing this. So that's the idea in ZBrush. You can get down and dirty and messy, and eventually you can fix it. So this is the actual final high-res model of the character. The trick also in ZBrush is if you can easily end up with too many subtools, meaning you can have too many objects in the scene, like you can have 80, because you're quickly doing this, and it's so easy. You have to learn how to compromise, merge them down, and then reproject those details back. So it's like, I guess in film, you'd have a scan data, and you need to redraw the wireframe of the model so that it's much more manageable, and then you need to reproject that detail back on. So it's the same idea, just that you just want to make all these little details into one piece. So this did come to about 80 subtools, and my computer wouldn't be able to really move more or do more for me. So I'd have to merge them down and use Dynamesh. So I'm going to show you a bit of Dynamesh. Okay, so that's the hard surface. You can use these cool little brushes. So inside the brush palette, there's these polish. Okay, and what this does is, if I change this into a madcap red, you start to get a much more a better. So most of the stuff that you see actually on the model was made from a sphere. I move it around, I move it into the torso, and I would just start using the polish brush or the trim dynamic brush. Trim dynamic. And that gives me an even sharper. And if I hold the Alt button, it gives me more mask, so it pulls it back out for me to start carving in. So if you start thinking about that this is sculpting, it's just carving in, carving out. That's how you get a nice shape. So I think for this demo, I'm just going to do like a quick Iron Man head for this. So now that I've got this sort of shape, just going to use the Move brush, which I use quite a lot. You see a lot of guys when they start using ZBrush for the first time, they keep using the standard brush or the clay brush. But what they don't understand is it's all about the silhouette. You're always looking at the, when I'm sculpting, I'm actually always looking at the rim of it. I'm always looking at what's that doing at the rim. So I'm just going to do a very quick. Also, I don't really like working in this perspective view. So I tend to keep it all orthographic so that I can measure these things more properly. So more Iron Man head. And okay, I think we have a proportion for a head almost. And it's too curvy at the moment. So what I do with this is I use the clip curve brush. And these are quite new. These are new in ZBrush as well. And what you do is you draw a curve on here. And that will basically make a nice carve. And this works well for like when you're doing guns or something and it's quite square, and you can do some really cool bevels from it. And then so now I want to use the trim dynamic brush to get that sort of the inner cheek shape. Trim dynamic. Trim adaptive was a little bit random. We're getting there. And I don't really memorize his head. But what you can then do is you can do masking. When you paint, you obviously get like as if you're painting it. But if you do a drag, you can actually get sharper lines. And then if I rotate this like this, I can do a mask like that. And then what I do is I do another one similar. At the moment, the model isn't subdivided enough, so I'm just gonna bring my resolution a little bit higher on my Dynamesh. Okay, this is a good part to explain this. So at the moment, this sphere project that I open, it's actually got the Dynamesh button open. I wonder if you guys can read that. So I've got this magnifying glass. So when that's turned on, what this does, it doesn't automatically work. But when I did that, mask, you can see that because I've moved the sphere around, I start to get some stretching polygons. What this does is when I turn my Dynamesh on and I control drag outside of it, it does an operation. And it actually, what it does is it equalizes the surface. So if you see this, the squares are now much more, they're all equal in shape. And this is the perfect sort of mesh that you want in ZBrush. Because when you do a hard surface modeling in Maya, you end up putting only edges or polygons in the corners and the edges, and you end up with nothing in the middle. And it's very hard to sculpt because there's no resolution to, there's no polys to actually push. So even if you were using Modbox, for example, and you started in Maya, it's still painful. So I would usually bring this really high because I'm crazy. And it doesn't work straight away. You just need to control, click, drag. Okay. Now it's really dense. And I'm usually happy with that. And now I can actually do, I'm just going to use the smooth brush just to smooth those edges. And then I'm just going to do that masking again because I want to pull some mouth shapes. Maybe a little bit more. And then if you hold the Alt button, so on the keyboard I don't go too far. I don't press G or go, I don't need to memorize too much because everything's just down here in the Control, Shift, the Alt, and it just does some. And sometimes it takes a little bit of exploring because sometimes there's a few tricks with the brushes that you can do, and that becomes quite cool to do. And then I use the transpose. So it's the move, the scale, the rotate that's up here. And actually it's just the same as the QWERTY, and they're just on the QWERTY keys up here. So now I can just draw a line, move this middle bit, that goes in, that goes, and then I move that in. So this serves as my extrude. So that's my extrude technique. And I'm not thinking about any edges again or any polygons. Just really thinking of it as like drawing in clay or something. And you can do something similar with, let's say we want to give him some sort of like eyebrow shape. Actually, maybe I'll draw. There's something quite cool with this transpose tool as well. What happens is when you hold the Alt key, it locks these other points. So usually if you just hold the move and then you don't do anything and you just move it, it moves the whole thing around. It wobbles. If you hold the Alt and you say you don't want to have any, you want this bottom bit sort of locked down, if you hold the Alt and while you're on top of this thing, you can just move the front bit or move this. And then we can do it similar with the rotate. So it takes a little bit of exploring. And I'm going to use my polish brush for this to sharpen those lines again. Polish. And these aren't your only brushes. I mean, there's already plenty in here. if you go into your light box here, and you go into brushes, there's actually quite a few more. And that's just basically there's a medium brush, and where's the, oh wait, is there an H polish brush here? Yeah, so I've actually just found the brush I wanted, and it was actually hidden under the H and not actually on the P. So basically it has you can do shortcuts. If let's say you wanted the standard brush, you press S. It just shows everything that has a S at the beginning of it, and then everything, and they all have another key, another letter to get to. Okay, so now I have this. Again, just, oops. Again, I'm just going to use the move brush again, just to get that better shape head. Like I said, it's about getting dirty with your clay, and then when you're happy with the shape, then you do all your polishing and all that stuff. So you don't necessarily need to keep polishing it, because you're basically exploring your concept stage. And this doesn't even need to serve as your final actual mesh. You can recreate the mesh, because at the moment you obviously have all the weird stuff at the back, and this is just the front part of the mask, for example, on Iron Man's head. So you can then later just extract this and redo that. Okay, so that's how I've approached most of the pieces on my model. But at first I wasn't very confident about it at first. So actually I did use Maya, for example, to make a disc for his chest. And later on, I would combine that inside ZBrush. So if, for example, you can then also, so what happens at work for me, if I have to do rigging first before I actually do a ZBrush model, usually we base the proportions on the high-res ZBrush model, and then we do the rigging from there. But sometimes the design, we need the rigging, we need the animation done sooner, and so there's a deadline. They would want me to do something really, really rough in Maya, really rough. I mean, it's not proper modeling at all. And what I can do is then I can take that into ZBrush, just use the GoZ function, and that will go straight into ZBrush. And let's say I had a disk there, and it was supposed to be it was meant to be actually just one piece, for example. If it had to be actually all connected to the model and all that stuff, you can then use Dynamesh to actually combine all of this stuff together. So you can actually come up with some crazy cool designs, basically, like if you wanted to do some really high-tech guns, and you've always had the hard time to actually do the modeling in Maya, you can do it in ZBrush, basically. So you just come up with these ideas, like you want to do a pipe coming out of it, just model the pipe, don't have to do any actual merging or combining in Maya, just go straight into here, and then just merge them down. Okay, merge down, okay. And then inside Dynamesh, inside this geometry menu, you just click on Dynamesh, and what that does, it will, now it's done this, it's done this very complicated Boolean operation My experience with Booleans in Maya is it can only do it with very basic stuff. So I've never had to do Boolean before, actually, except now. So that's how I've done some of the combination. Sometimes I would combine it, or sometimes I would decide, actually, this is not working. So I'm just gonna. So I'm just gonna hide some of this stuff. Just gonna delete the ones that so I'm just undoed all of that stuff, and I'm just gonna hide those disks. So let's say actually it's not working. I can't have it all as one combination, as one piece. Sorry. So if I show you the polyframe, it's a little bit too. So I'm just gonna bring it back down. So now it's at 128 resolution, much more manageable. And I decided, this jaw shouldn't be actually part of the head. So I'm going to use I can either use the slice curve brush, and basically in ZBrush, if you guys use Photoshop, you'd know that when you're painting something, you'd want to have a quick selection layer. Basically, that's what polygroups does. So I'm just going to quickly draw a line here around his mouth, I think. It's a bit weird. Maybe it's not that obvious, actually. Maybe they haven't changed the color or something. I'm just going to see if that's actually changed. Let me see if that works. Group split. OK. Usually when you do polygroups, it changes the color. So I'm going to try this with these disks and see if that changes it. So at the moment, maybe because I have this material, that's why it's so red. I'm going to go into the gray. So as you can see, it's got two separate colors. And that just basically means I can easily mask off one area. So I'm no longer able to sculpt this blue bit. So I can have things all sort of combined together, and I wouldn't have any problems of messing around with the blue one. And then I can just switch onto the other one. So these polygroups play a lot of does a lot of things with your workflow. So like for example, now actually I've just done this polygroup, and so actually it was a little bit the colors were a little bit close. So this one's a bit more red, and this one was sort of a bit more purple. And actually now what I've done is I've actually separated them with the this group split button here, which is underneath the subtools. So then if I have Dynamesh still on, I can actually cover those holes. So now I actually have two pieces from that head. So that's how I start some of the the rib cage or the abs of my character. I'd sculpt something, and maybe it's good if I split them up or something. And this is what I would do. I would make polygroups for these, and there are several ways of doing polygroups. So you don't necessarily need to keep just using the slice curve, because you just need to get comfortable with all the different brushes and stuff like that. And obviously there's menus in here that says auto group, group visible. So you can, for example, hide. I'm just going to switch to my selection. So I can hide a certain area, and then I would just group visible, make it to a different color. Yeah. And again, that's just how easy it is, really. You can hide that, and then group split. Oh, or you can split hidden. And as long as you have Dynamesh on, so you need to be aware that Dynamesh is on at the moment. And once you're happy with the shape, you don't really want to have this on anymore. You just need to turn it off like that. And then you can start using your polish brush or your trim dynamic brush to actually do hard surfaces. And that's it basically with just starting with a sphere. So you can go really crazy, cut stuff up, and treat it as clay. So I was doing so I had this character and I was doing a gun, which I didn't really actually manage to finish. So I just wanted to show you guys the beginning of it and how I've ended with it. And basically I was using shadow box, which is another feature. Really, really super awesome feature. So this is a shadow box. So I'm just gonna make a new shadow box. So if you go into your light box, hit that up here. If you click on light box, and then you select the shadow box. And what this does is you get a cube that's sort of which you can paint your masks on. So if I paint something in here, it will automatically make a shape for me there. So I can literally do really complicated stuff like I'll use a mask circle, for example, like this. And then in here, I would draw rectangles that come across. Oh, I'll use the symmetry, so I can do it on both sides. And just keep it very rough. And you end up not having to do that in Maya for ages. And then again, you can give it, obviously you can do something with the profile as well if you wanted to make it more like a microchip sort of thing. So basically really complicated stuff that you can do in here. But the idea for me in Shadowbox is when I'm doing a gun, for example, because you can't really hold this shape if you want to suddenly add smaller bits. So what I do is I would actually, I would start with like this basic shape. So this is actually the shape of the gun, of the profile. And this is the back of it. So you can see the handle. And then I decided I want to give it some sort of like chicken feet there. I really liked it. So I didn't know where it's going to go. You know, this is all concepting. It's my own idea, you know. And then I'd duplicate this subtool. So if I just go up here, Control-Shift-D, duplicate. And then I would just repaint, for example, the trigger. I'll go transparent. I think I have, yeah. So now I can actually see where I'm going to be painting. And then I'm just going to use my mask pen. And so I can do all this smaller detail in another shadow box. And then obviously it has to have a much thinner shape. And then you keep making all of this stuff. And you can always add some more again later. And what this gun has turned into now, and gun 2. I'll show you the finished gun. So that's what the gun looks like now. So these techniques that I showed you earlier was the masking. So how I did these bits here, these were done with masking, and I'm just using the transpose move tool. I move it in and then move it back. So I move it sideways, inwards, and then I move the bottom bit up. And then I make those complicated shapes straight away. I don't need to make a complicated alpha that does this, that goes around it or something. So I keep doing that, and then I use like a very sharp standard brush that cuts through the mesh. And then I have these really complicated sphere, sort of like concave shapes, and you can use these clip curve brushes, and what that does is it makes. So I'm just gonna. I think I have this selected. So I can draw, for example, over here, and I hold Alt, and then it just carves that gun straight away. So if I wanted something quite round, or because sometimes you're sculpting, and you you move this too far, then you can use your well, not in that way, but you first go into a mask circle, okay, like that. Oh, yeah. Oh. Well, usually I don't make this mistake, so so I would try and maybe move it in, and I'd mask this outer bit, so I don't want to affect the rest of my gun. And then I'd use this clip circle, and I hope it works. Oh. No, we need to do it the other way. Alt. So there you go. So that sort of fixes that round shape again, and you just need to do these. So all these little tiny details, really easy, nothing complicated. Just do a mask. Oh, just gonna unmask. So like all these small little details, they're all just like. I've got the symmetry on. Okay. So again, just like that. Blur it a little bit, and then just draw a transpose from the side, and then just move it in. So all those little things, you know, you're thinking about wireframe, forget about it. I'm not going back there anymore. Also, like these little handles like this, not very complicated to do again. This is just an extract. So another way to generate mesh is you can paint a mask like this. And actually what I did, I was following this this pattern I had. Mask, mask pen. And then I just draw that shape. I'm doing it really fast, lazily. Okay. And then over here in the subtool, you can do an extract. And what that does is, you don't see it that well, but if you see it now, it creates a mesh there around that area. And then if you hit accept, that makes a new subtool down here. Now I have something again that I need to carve, clean, and all that stuff. But I'm no longer thinking about, I'm more thinking about it as a traditional sculptor. You know, I've got this bunch of clay that I need to smooth out. And I'm just going to unmask it. And then I'm just going to do some carving. So I'm going to use the clip curve to straighten that out. There. And then draw another line there. Double click, make it straight. There you go. And obviously, you can see it sort of clicks onto an area, and you want it there, but it doesn't do it. Well, actually, when you click it, it actually goes there. So the curve actually is very accurate. Wherever you click on it, it actually goes there. But it doesn't feel right because you're trying to look at it, and it's not going where you want it. Actually, it's just when you click on it, it actually goes there. And then if you click it on it again, it makes a point. And I'll click on here. And then if I hold space bar, I can actually still move this clip curve. And then that round bit that was on the original handle, again, that's just a Dynamesh thing. Just append the cylinder, or use one of these insert brushes, so you don't need to keep appending. Insert cylinder. And I would just draw it from the side like that. Let's squash it, match it. And then if I have Dynamesh on, so now you want to make the resolution higher. And that's how you make those shapes, basically, for that gun. So I have some sort of like, sometimes when you're doing a gun, when you're doing these like big circular detail, and you're trying to sculpt in this area, I usually leave this quite at the last moment. So what I do is I'll actually do this separately. I'll do the disc separately. So I'll show you some of the ones I've sort of done. Oh, mega parts. I hope that's the one. Loading. Okay. So they're quite heavy. Because I'm crazy with Dynamesh. I keep making them so high. So I've created all these like different sort of disc details, you know, these sci-fi shapes that you see in anime or in film or something. And so those things I just add at the end, just add it to the character and then Dynamesh it, and it's part of the character. It's not a separate subtool anymore. And these things are very easy to do. You can just append just go to just append another cylinder, for example. I go to this cylinder. I'm just going to squash it a little bit, and then I'm going to subdivide it like that. Oh. Let's see if this is good to sculpt. So I'm just going to use the standard brush. Yeah, so that's good. But we get this sort of pinch at the in the middle because it's originally a cylinder. So again, I'm just going to Dynamesh it again. No. Okay, so that's better. And then we can use inside transform. When we every time we do symmetry, you can do it in a mirror. So like so it's mirrored. But you can also do it in a rotation sort of orientation. So now you can actually do some like turbo effect. It's up to you. Use polish brush or whatever to make it sharper, or get some. And then you can increase this number, increase the radial count, so that you get the much more sort of finer lines that you want to create. And I'm just going to use the flatten or the trim dynamic. And you can end up with something sort of sort of mechanical in a way. Use the standard again. So that's just one of it. Just one more technique. When I'm doing my models, I get. So this is now actually the game model. It's the actual wireframe. If you now see it, is that, and I'm using a normal map to actually show those details. So it's tricking. It's using a normal map to calculate how the light is going to affect the surface of the model. So if you do your model very simple, you can let me hit 7. Put some lights on. So and also in ZBrush, what you do is, because you have so many subtools, you can have about 30. So actually for this character, he had nearly 40 subtools. That's quite a lot of high-res mesh, and that comes up to like, so I'm just going to open up him in ZBrush now. I didn't want to open him up all the time because he's quite heavy. He's about 600 MB. So it almost, when you're baking, sometimes it doesn't take as long as if you were rendering a shot for film or something. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. You can go to sleep first. So I'm just going to load him up. At the moment, I'm actually teaching, I'm actually doing a private lesson with this sculptor, traditional sculptor, and he doesn't know how to use Photoshop or Maya, and he's just really loving all of this shadow box and stuff. And also, if you, also you can use, so I was just going to say earlier that the brushes, you can define the shape of it. So if I choose an alpha like this, right, that will be the so you can see that's the shape that comes out of this brush. So if you wanted to be more original, you would make your own alphas. But now I don't do them in Photoshop. I don't create images in Photoshop to make these. I just go and open. I just append a plane, a polyplane, I think. And I'm just going to go to this polyplane. Let's use this. So I can actually, so I can start doing some really maybe more mechanical or organic. For example, you can do like the side of a jacket or something. Oh, sorry, like a sleeve of a jacket where you have this sort of repeated detail. So you can do some really nice sculpting, for example, like that. Or maybe I'll make my signature. And all I need to do is I go into Alpha, I go to Create. Oh, no, Modify. No, it's not there again. Okay, so it's in Transfer. I usually adjust my UI. I think Max is going to show you like a custom UI. Usually, actually, my UI is not this standard UI. I have everything on the screen. I mean, I'm usually just sculpting in the middle, so I don't really need all this massive real estate. So if I do grab doc, that actually creates my alpha based on my sculpt. So I can go into like this. So this is how some of these were actually made. These details are actually sculpted in planes and then used as an alpha, and I just push them in. And that's just how you do it. Really easy. You just do it over and over, all over the place. You don't need to just concentrate on this one area. So I was like, I was teaching this traditional sculptor how to do fingers, and he actually sculpts each finger in ZBrush. I was like, you just do one finger, and you can just project the details onto the other fingers. So, you know, it's there's all these tricks really in ZBrush, and just go on ZBrush Central or Pixelogic's website. They've got loads of it there, and everybody's sharing their brushes, and that's it really. So if I use the drag rectangle, so I have, obviously that plane is starting to show. You can basically change the how deep this alpha will actually go. So you go into alpha, you change the mid value. Maybe 100 will work. And you can see now it's pushed it backwards, so maybe it's too much. So if I actually, I'll just do it again more properly. Just go into this. Basically, you need to just go in right at the middle, make sure that it's zoomed in properly, and just sort of scale it up, and basically explode it on your screen just like that. And then you can do it again. So trial and error. And then if I maybe sculpt it on these pieces here, and if you have the mid value up, I think that should work. Oh. And so that's a little bit better. But you can basically have it seamless. Just need to practice. So that's the so that's my presentation. So some quick techniques and some shadow box. I showed you how to do extract and how to cut up and make the sphere better looking, and using basically the polish brush to get hard surface modeling, which hasn't been being done a lot in ZBrush. I've actually surprised my lead artists that you could do this now in ZBrush. You don't necessarily need to start in Maya, but you can still do your basic shapes, cubes, just put it together so that when you do rigging, you can just do it. I think questions are for later. Oh yeah. Sorry, the full model. I've messed it up. Sorry. Turn off solo. There we go. He's all poly painted. So actually, I had to bake the character down to a low poly mesh, like the one I have in Maya. Because at the moment, he's got 38 million polygons. It's crazy. And this originally had 80 pieces, which I've managed to, I think, get down to, I think there's my preferences, utility, no. Miscellaneous. I have now 36 subtools. So it's still quite a lot of pieces to bake down, really. So what you do is, the technique is you need to unwrap these models, unwrap these meshes. So also, earlier, I didn't really explain it. When I was doing Dynamesh, I usually keep it really quite high, right? And I don't actually have any subdivision levels, which is a very big problem in ZBrush. If you don't have subdivision levels, it starts to become, see, if I rotate it around, it drops down the detail. So that's why you need these subdivision levels. So with ZBrush, for example, if this was, I'm just going to delete the lower. Okay, so this is now, for example, my original subtool. I just basically Control-Shift-D. I duplicate this model, and I'm going to set the Dynamesh resolution to maybe 64 or 72, whatever, something small. And then if I hit Dynamesh, I should lose even the. I think I should even lose the color a little. Lose the color as well. So I do the coloring at the very end. So disregard the color at the moment. So then I have this really basic shape as my base mesh, for example, and I subdivide this to maybe 5 times, like before, and then I use the projectile. So at the moment, when I use the projectile, it's not working at the moment because I need to make this visible. So I'm only going to be projecting what's visible. If I have everything on, it's going to try and project all the details onto that one particular mesh, and that is not what you want, because you'll have all these like it's going to fracture, don't know the right word, just broken. So when I do projectile now, I should get all my details. That's why I don't. That's why I'd sort of maybe save this for last, because usually all this, there's a lot of processing happening. And there you go. So now I have a model that actually has subdivision levels from a original Dynamesh model that was at the resolution of 1024, which is too high to actually work. And like I said, I ended up with 80 subtools. What I then do is I merge them down, and then I just reproject the. So I could, let's say, have. So originally, actually, this used to be 4 subtools, because these are actually 4 different pieces originally. But because I was able to merge them down and then use Dynamesh to combine them and then just reproject the details back on. Just draw the shape with the masking. And then all these cylinders again, I showed you that I sculpted them separately and then I just merged them down with Dynamesh. And then I was just drawing lines, extruding these areas. So even like these things like look complicated, but you just mask them like this and then just move them out. I think that's it. Is it? Yeah? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that.